It starts as a low hum, a tightness in your chest on a Sunday evening, the frantic scrolling through bad news on your phone at 2 a.m., the feeling that the ground beneath your feet is slowly dissolving. We live in an era that has effectively weaponized anxiety. We are constantly plugged in, overstimulated, and spiritually starving. We treat this crisis with distractions. We numb it with entertainment. We try to medicate it or mindfulness it away. But the hum remains. But what if the antidote to this ultra-modern, high-velocity anxiety isn't some new biohack or a pharmaceutical breakthrough? What if the most sophisticated tool for navigating a crisis was actually designed 800 years ago? For centuries, people facing plagues, wars, and personal collapse have turned to a specific, rhythmic set of prayers that many of us associate with grandmothers and dusty churches, the Rosary. But if you think this is just a necklace with a cross on it, you are missing the mechanics of a spiritual nuclear weapon. There is a reason this specific devotion is called the battering ram of heaven. There is a reason why, when the world falls apart, people reach for these beads. Today, we are going to deconstruct the Holy Rosary, not just as a religious tradition, but as a psychological anchor, a historical force, and a tactical weapon for spiritual survival. Let's look at the mechanics. On the surface, the Rosary seems simple, almost deceptively so. It is a loop of beads. You say the same prayers over and over again. To the modern, hyperactive mind, this sounds like boredom. But to the anxious brain, this is medicine. Neuroscience gives us a fascinating window into why this works. When you are in a crisis, whether it's a divorce, a diagnosis, or a financial collapse, your brain is stuck in a loop. It's called rumination. Your default mode network is firing uncontrollably, replaying your fears, simulating worst-case scenarios. He runs down the street, and the neighborhood, the very people he had terrorized, decides they have had enough. A mob forms. It forces you to engage 3 senses simultaneously. You have the tactile sensation of the beads rolling between your fingertips. That is physical grounding. You have the auditory rhythm of your own voice repeating the Hail Mary that acts like a sonic anchor. And you have the visual meditation of the mind focusing on the life of Christ. This combination creates a cognitive load that occupies the frantic parts of your brain, allowing your nervous system to downshift from fight or flight into rest and digest. Before we even talk about God or grace, simply picking up the Rosary is a physiological intervention. It is a way to tell your body, we are here, we are safe, we are breathing. But if it were just a stress ball, we could stop there. The Rosary claims to be much more. To understand its true weight, we have to go back to the 13th century. The legend, and it is a powerful one, says that Saint Dominic was fighting a losing battle against the Albigensian heresy. This was a dark, dualistic movement that claimed the physical world was evil. Dominic was failing. He was exhausted. And in that moment of desperation, it is said the Virgin Mary appeared to him and gave him this weapon. She didn't give him a sword. She gave him the Psalter of Mary, the Rosary. The message was clear. You cannot win a spiritual war with intellectual arguments alone. You need prayer. Over the centuries, this evolved. It moved from monks reciting 150 psalms to the laity reciting 150 Hail Marys. It became the Bible on a string. It is a compendium of the entire gospel. When you pray the Rosary, you are not just saying words. You are time traveling. You are stepping into the shoes of Mary and walking through the life of Jesus. And this brings us to the weaponization of the prayer. Padre Pio, perhaps the most famous mystic of the 20th century, didn't call the Rosary a devotion. He called it the weapon. Why? Because in the theology of spiritual warfare, nothing repels darkness like humility. The Rosary is a humble prayer. It asks you to become like a child. Father Gabriele Amorth, the Vatican's chief exorcist for decades, wrote about encounters where the demonic explicitly reacted to the Rosary. He described the Hail Mary as a blow to the head of the enemy. Why? Because it repeats the moment of the Incarnation, the moment God became human, the moment the plan for our salvation was locked in. Every bead is a reminder to the forces of darkness that they have already lost. But how does this help you when you lose your job on a Tuesday, or when you receive a cancer diagnosis? This is where the mysteries come in. The Rosary is divided into joyful, luminous, sorrowful, and glorious mysteries. When you are in crisis, you are living the sorrowful mysteries. You don't have to pretend to be happy. You can take your anxiety and graft it onto the agony in the garden. You can look at Jesus sweating blood in Gethsemane and say, "He felt this too." You can take your humiliation and connect it to the scourging at the pillar. You can take your heavy burden and walk the way of the cross. The Rosary stops your suffering from being meaningless. It transforms your pain into a prayer. It says, "I am suffering, but I am not suffering alone. I am suffering with Him." And then it forces you to keep going. You don't stop at the sorrowful mysteries. You have to pray the glorious ones. You have to look at the resurrection. The Rosary wires your brain to believe that death is not the end. It trains you to expect the sunrise even when you are standing in the tomb. History backs this up with staggering examples. The most famous is the Battle of Lepanto in 1571. The Ottoman Empire had a massive naval fleet, poised to crush Christian Europe. They were undefeated. The Christian fleet, the Holy League, was a patchwork of disagreements and smaller ships. By all military calculations, Europe was about to fall. Pope Pius V didn't send more ammunition. He ordered the churches of Rome to stay open around the clock. He told the faithful to pray the Rosary. On the day of the battle, the wind was blowing against the Christian ships. They were sailing into a death trap. And then, at the precise hour the Rosary processions were taking place in Rome, the wind shifted 180 degrees. The smoke from the cannons blew back into the faces of the Ottoman fleet. The formation broke. Against all odds, the smaller fleet won. It wasn't just a victory, it was a rescue. This is why we celebrate the Feast of the Holy Rosary on October 7th. It is a memorial to the fact that when human resources are exhausted, this prayer can shift the winds of history. So here is the reality. You might not be facing an Ottoman fleet. You might be facing a depression that feels just as heavy. You might be facing a marriage that is falling apart. You feel outnumbered and outgunned. This is the moment to pick up the weapon. It doesn't require you to be a saint. It doesn't require you to have perfect focus. In fact, the Rosary is designed for the distracted, the weak, and the tired. It is a prayer for people who don't know how to pray. You just hold the beads, you start the rhythm. Hail Mary, full of grace, and you let the rhythm carry you when your own strength fails. Sister Lucia of Fatima famously said that, "There is no problem, I tell you, no matter how difficult it is, that we cannot resolve by the prayer of the Holy Rosary." That is a bold claim, but it is a claim tested by centuries of martyrs, saints, and ordinary sinners. If you are in a crisis today, stop trying to think your way out of it. Stop trying to worry your way to a solution. Find a rosary. If you don't have one, use your 10 fingers. Start the loop. Anchor yourself to the physical reality of the prayer, and let the spiritual reality do the heavy lifting. Step into the stream of grace that has been flowing for 800 years. Don't just face your crisis. Consecrate it, pick up the beads, and watch the winds shift.